So here we are, building a bridge of light. Didn't you love that song? It was just perfect. Perfect. We know that everything, well, first of all, God is all there is. That energy of goodness is all there is. And if God is love and God is light, then it would just make sense that everything is love and everything is light. But since it's energy, it happens in degrees, in frequencies. And you and I have the responsibility here on earth, or the opportunity, however you want to term that, to amplify the frequency of love, of light, of goodness, of understanding, of possibility in our life, right? Isn't that why we're here? Because we want to turn up all that is good and right and true so we have better experiences. Yeah? Yeah. Well, I tried that this morning. I came in a really good mood, and I'm going, turn into the parking lot, and it's full. And I'm wondering, well, it's only 9:30. I'm sure our latecomers, which is 95% of us, aren't here yet. So who's in the parking lot? And I found out that the archery business down the way had a tournament today. Well, you know, in our contract, of course, we have Sundays for the parking lot, and so my light didn't amplify up. Because we've dealt with them before and been very gracious and kind. So I went in and gave the cashier a little piece of my mind and walked out a little frustrated. And he said, I'm just the cashier. I said, I understand. Do you have someone in charge? No. Okay. So I walk in, and I walk in here to talk to Kirk, and they're still playing. And Gretchen says, could we play that again from Don't Let Your Anger Get You Lost? The best. I mean, that's the truth too. You know, when we live in this consciousness, we will get the answer. So I walked out, and who's ushering today but beautiful Julie and Steve. And Steve happens to be a mediator, and he saw I was a little upset, so he went down in all his graciousness, and I got to hand that over, and immediately my frequency amplified to a greater good. So thank you, Steve. That was so nice. There's answers everywhere. I think the main message I want to express today is every problem has a solution. It holds its own solution. That's part of this cosmic consciousness that we're talking about. Bridging the light, building the bridge, means building the bridge to a greater awareness, to the reality of the all that is, to that cosmic consciousness. Paul says in his first letter to the Thessalonians, he says, we are children of the light, children of the day. We do not belong to the darkness. And I'd like to just add to that by saying, no, we don't belong to the darkness, but we experience the darkness. The darkness is part of our learning curve here on this beautiful place called Earth, this planet Earth. We get to touch the darkness so we can see, we can understand the light. Now, the cycles of nature teach us about things are always in flux. Wasn't it Heraclitus who said, everything in flux and you can't step into the same river twice? Because it's always changing. Winter turns into... Well, I'm glad a few of you know about the seasons. That's so nice. Since we just celebrated the spring equinox, I think we could all say, winter turns into... Yes! Oh, we get it. And night turns into... And the womb gives... Right. So there are these cycles that we are here to learn from. And remember that we are children of the light. We're made in that image and likeness of light. And inside each and every one of us, there is an inner witness, an inner sense of that light. We don't ever separate from that light, but we can dim it, just like I practiced this morning. We can dim it, and we can forget when we don't really remember who we are. But when we have the intention to be building a bridge to our greater good, to a greater understanding, we'll get the answers from a song, from an usher, from something. The answers will be there for us. We simply have to be open to it. I believe that our intention here on earth is to connect, bring together heaven and earth. And as Paul said in one of his later letters, it's moving from glory to greater glory. It's all good. Do you know God, right this moment, God sees us as perfect. Pretty cool, huh? God sees us as perfect right now, with all our frailties and all the learning we still have to do. And if we could think like God thinks, wow, wouldn't life change? So bridging heaven and earth. Heaven, first of all, is not a place we go. It's not somewhere we're going to get to. It's a state of consciousness. Ernest Holmes says it's a state of happiness, joy, peace, love, goodness, creativity that we need to awaken to. So bridging earth, we sometimes think that the body is what we are. We look in the mirror and think, oh, that's me, but it's not me. This is simply a vessel, just a vessel to contain our spirit, which is infinite and eternal and ever expanding. And we get to bridge the denseness of this matter into the greater understanding that, wow, it's light, and we get to be in that possibility. Now, all mystics, now we know that many of us right here, well, we're all mystics. Many of us have awoken to it already. We have mystical experiences, but all mystics have had deep experiences with cosmic consciousness, cosmic awakening. And what it is, it's when there's flashes of reality that come to you, flashes of light where you realize there is no separation. We're all part of one life flowing through everything. It's the flashes of, we are infinite and eternal right here and right now. One of the most well-known times in religious science is when Ernest Holmes was giving a dedication. It was 1958, and he was giving a dedication to a new church in Whittier, California. And he was up there giving one of his brilliant and amazing messages, talks, sermons, whatever you want to call it. And he was there professing wisdom, and all of a sudden he kind of stopped and he went, I see it. We do mingle with hosts of angels. And he kind of stumbled off the stage, and he stopped his talk then. Well, his good friend and student and a minister, George Bindle, was taking him home, and he said he rode home in total silence, and he went to his house and sat in his favorite brown leather chair, just contemplating. And finally, when he started talking, he said, when I was talking, it was like everything, the church and the people, all turned into a pool of shimmering light. And it seemed like I was severed, and maybe I was, from myself. And I could see myself talking. And when I was talking, I knew that life was eternal. I knew that we didn't make any mistakes, that everything was all on purpose as individualized expressions. I knew that life was inherently good, always. He said, but George, you can't tell anyone because they won't understand. It's hard to understand when you have an experience like that. Now, my experience wasn't quite as profound or quite as clear as Ernest, but I remember having that illuminated experience when I was 11, and it was a Sunday morning, and I was at Brentwood Presbyterian Church, and I remember I heard a message from one of the ministers that I couldn't get. I just didn't get that God would be judging. I thought, God has to be love, and I remember going out onto the yard there and sitting on the grass kind of far away from this beautiful brick church. I sat in the back. And I remember having this experience, and it was just like that, a flash of light where I could see the universe, the whole universe, not an old man sitting up there with a big long beard looking down at us, but the vibrancy of the universe, and I could see it had no end. It was infinite and eternal, and we're all part of that. And I remember it was just like for a few minutes I sat there, but this vision stayed with me, and I couldn't tell anyone. There weren't words big enough to talk about it. You know, just as Ernest said, don't tell anyone, they won't understand. We're afraid of things we don't understand, right? Our job is to face things we're afraid of so we can learn about them and we can understand more. I shared on my Friday message, my Friday inspiration, the little message from Marianne Williamson, and I'd like to share a bit of that again because I don't think we can hear this enough. It actually, this portion of her reading from her book, Return to Love, was credited to Nelson Mandela because he'd used it in his inaugural speech, but it's actually Marianne Williamson's. She said, "Our fear is not that we are inadequate. Our fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, powerful beyond measure. It's not our light, but our darkness that frightens us the most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? And I ask you, who are you not to be? You are a child of God." And if we remember that, oh my goodness. If we remember that we are a child of God, what amazing things can happen. We have to steer away from the fear and turn it into something more. You know, Moses, in about 1440 BC, long time ago, had a cosmic experience. When he went up to Mount Sinai, he spoke to God and received the 2 tablets with the covenants, the commandments. And as he was walking down Mount Sinai, his face radiated with light because he'd spoken to God. And his followers, the Israelites, got so frightened they wouldn't come near him. And he said, come. And he shared what he had heard from God. He shared it. But then he put a veil over his face because he knew that people were afraid of what they don't completely understand. Jesus had a similar experience when he went up to a mountaintop, a high mountaintop with 3 of his disciples. And there was a flash of light and there was a transfiguration about Jesus and a vision. And his face became as bright as the sun and his clothes turned as bright and white as light. And the disciples got so afraid that they fell to the ground. But he too said, "Do not be afraid. But don't tell anyone." We have to stop not telling people. We have to stop being afraid of the light. We had such a fun experience, fun, interesting, good, expansive experience on Friday night. We had our spring equinox celebration and ritual to welcome in the light. And we did a lot of wonderful things. We had readings from different cultures about spring. We had the historic and world view of the tree of life. We set our intentions for Mother Earth and wrote them and put them on our tree. We had a couple other activities, but one of the activities is we went outside because we realized that if we really want to welcome springtime and welcome the light, we have to make space for it. So we did an old Huna ritual where we took a coconut and passed it around, and into the coconut we would just energetically infuse our limitations, things that were holding us back from accepting and being the light, and we passed it around the circle, and then Cheryl came and she threw that coconut and boom, just broke it open so we could have a new experience. And we went back inside and got into groups of about 4 people and shared our experience. And I had a really great awakening then. I was sharing that one of the things I energetically had put into the coconut was my grief about the world we're leaving for our children. the grief I have that there's so much separation and sadness and violence and blame and grief, and I was really upset by it, and I started to say, and I know that every problem has its solution, but I can't, and I started to say I can't see one, and I remembered the next day the young people were marching for their lives. Sometimes we just need a bigger view. It was very transformational, and I don't know how many of you watched those young people who took their fear. Do you know the kids that were 16, that many of them had lockdown drills from the time they were in kindergarten? No wonder they're afraid to go to school. No wonder, but they turned that fear into something positive and reasonable. It was beautiful the way they spoke. And when Martin Luther King's granddaughter, 11 years old, spoke, and she said, "I have a dream too. Never again. Let's stop the violence now." So that's an intention that we can just set to make this a kinder, more beautiful world. What I do know is the light that we really need is the light that has a kinship with the darkness, that understands that darkness is a part of life, so we don't judge things. Do you know an evolved soul judges no one? How evolved are we? But we want to aim for that. An evolved soul judges no one. We need to praise. We need to start praising and not condemning. We need to find our voice for good, to find the solution, even if we don't see it in the moment, to broaden our perspective and view. When we think as God thinks, that is heaven. And as Ernest Holmes says, when we love, the gift of heaven is made. And the gateway or bridge of love is towards one another. The bridge of love is towards God. And that's for us. That's what creates, that's how we build the bridge to amplify the love, the praise, the solutions, the consciousness in our life. Now, something really wonderful happened this week. Arielle Ford. How many of you know Arielle Ford? She is a brilliant messenger of metaphysics. She works with Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson. She's published books. She had a book publishing company with Wayne Dyer. I mean, all metaphysical, beautiful metaphysical people. She works on relationships right now. That's her thing. She has 11 books on relationships. Beautiful soul, fun, light, loving, just a beautiful woman. She said, how you choose to see things informs the way they appear for you. Choose love, and love appears. Choose love, and love appears. Well, mark down April 21st. April 21st, because got a little call on the phone. She's coming here, and she's going to share with us. And I am so excited because she's a change maker, and she does so with grace and ease and fun and humor and joy, but tons of love. So I honor that beautiful call. She and James Van Prague have been talking, and James sent her over here, and so we've got a lot of good things going on. So mark that date down. But now, in preparation for the prayer wall, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. Just close your eyes as we know, and if you want to put your hand on your heart, because this is where heaven is. This is where the consciousness is, the love consciousness that takes us to heaven. There is no more heaven ever than there is right now. There will be no day in eternity where we cannot touch heaven, have heaven. There's no day any better than this day right now. I want you in this moment, as you have your hand on your heart or just your consciousness there, what would it take to amplify love, light, goodness, your frequency of possibility? What would it take for you to expand your light right now? Would it take letting go? Would it take more understanding? And I'm going to invite our ushers and ministers up right now to form that wall of truth as we continue. What would it take for you to be kinder to yourself? To forgive yourself, to forgive others, to forgive life, to forgive God? What would it take right now to expand your light, your frequency, to have a lighter, more loving, kinder presence in this world? Em, you want to move down here? Yeah. So today, as we've already established, knowing that our beautiful Ernest Holmes created a beautiful prayer, we call it a prayer treatment. Beginning with God is all there is. So simply feel this room filled with God, with love, with light, with possibility, with creativity. God is all there is. And the second step being, I am one. I am part of this good. I am a spark of that light. I am a child of God, of good, of love, of all that is right and true. And now as you come forward, I simply invite you to come to one of our beautiful ministers, practitioners, and just say, I expand my light by, and you decide today what you are committed to expand the light of goodness, of love, of possibility in your own heart. And just imagine, as we do this together, the bridge of light that we are creating. Please come forward now. And as we feel our prayers coming to a close, we just simply embrace and know in absolute faith and consciousness that right here and right now we have every single thing we need. We know in this moment we are aligned with all that is good and right and true, and we see and know that as a prayer is spoken, we know that the energy, the consciousness, the love of God is uplifting, creating, and expanding our good in this and every moment. We then know that heaven is here right now, that state of consciousness that keeps us in alignment with what is good. We keep ourselves open to all the creative miracles that are percolating right in this world, right here and right now. In this moment, we release the prayer that we have spoken in faith and in knowing that it is done right here and right now. We let the light and words of Spirit work through us as us to guide us every step of the way, leading us towards the good that is already present. We say, thank you, God, for all of this and so much more. And it is together we say, and so it is. God bless you all. I love you, I appreciate you, and I know the good in store for each and every one of us. And so it is.